the rib joints and the spinal joints themselves are stiff, tight, and overloaded, that is a signal that your body needs to either protect or support that overloaded area. So g'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you how you can fix rhomboid pain in 4 simple steps. Now what these steps are going to touch on is there's going to be a symptomatic exercise in there to hopefully help you get on top of that rhomboid pain really quickly and really easily. But then we also need to touch on why that rhomboid pain is there in the first place. What is it about your day-to-day life? What is it about the way that your body's functioning that's asking those rhomboids or that rhomboid on one side to become dysfunctional and annoying for you? So if you want to hang around towards the end of the video, we're going to make sure that you've got a really clear understanding about how to solve it, but then also how to make sure that it goes away and stays away, what's required of you to make this happen going forward. So before we get into the video, obviously, if you're going to enjoy it, if you find it useful, please consider leaving a like rating down below, subscribe if you're new, and if this does fill in a missing gap for you, if it's a piece of the puzzle that gets solved because of this video, please consider leaving a super thanks donation. It's just a great way to support the channel going forward. So with that being said, let's get into these 4 steps. Step number 1 is making sure that you acknowledge that rhomboid pain isn't normal. Now again, that may sound obvious to a lot of people, but there's a lot of people out there who have painful rhomboids or upper back pain, and because so many people tend to have it, we tend to get drawn out of this idea that we shouldn't have it. It becomes more normal to have it. But it's important to understand that in a perfect world, nothing should feel sore in your body. Nothing should be tight, nothing should be weak, nothing should be painful, especially. Acknowledging that that is an issue for you, something that you don't deserve to have, and something that you want to go away is an important first step. Now, step number 2 is a really simple symptomatic relief based exercise. Now we're going to use a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball to do this. So you need to choose the one that feels the most comfortable for you. Obviously a lacrosse ball is a lot harder, a tennis ball is a lot softer. So depending on how painful and tender those rhomboids might be for you, choose the appropriate device that reflects that. Now again, for anyone who doesn't know specifically, the rhomboid muscles attach from your shoulder blade, the inner border of your shoulder blade, onto your rib cage and thoracic spine. Now, one of the things I think gets missed a lot when we're having a conversation about getting rid of muscular-based issues is that we tend to think of it as just a muscular issue. And with that in mind, it leads us down the path of, well, we need to stretch that muscle in order to release it and make it feel better. But clinically, what I find is that for every tight muscle, there is something behind the scenes pulling the strings, making that tight and asking that to be tight. And in this instance, in a lot of cases, if the rib joints and the spinal joints themselves are stiff, tight, and overloaded, that is a signal that your body needs to either protect or support that overloaded area. So by using a ball, yes, we're going to push the ball into the rhomboid muscle, but we're also hoping to sink underneath that and affect some change in the actual rib joints and the thoracic spinal joints as well. And you'll see that reflected in how we do this, because we're not going to use the ball to dig into those rhomboids around the back and roll around on it. That's not going to be good enough or specific enough to target those deeper underlying rib joints and thoracic spinal joints. So what we want to get you to do instead is with the ball, we want to place the ball in the middle of your rib cage area in between your shoulder blades. So my shoulder blade here, the spine is here, and the rib cage and in between that's here. So this is where the rhomboids will tend to be. So there's a little bit of trial and error to find where you feel most comfortable here. But we're going to get you to place the ball in that area and then just gently lie down on top of that. So again, we're not directly on the spine, we're not on the shoulder blade, we're in the middle somewhere. And ultimately, this is where we can almost forget about the rhomboids and just go looking for things that feel stiff, tight, or tender. The important thing about this, as I said, is we're not rolling around. That doesn't do what we want to do here. So right in the middle where the spine is, just roll off a little bit. You'll be on the spinal joints. Just let the ball press in for a second. Get a sense of how stiff, tight, or tender this may feel. Then compare it to the exact same spot on the other side. And for me, in this position, this particular joint feels a little bit restricted. So because we're on the rib cage, I want to do 2 things. The first thing is stay here. The second thing is to take a deep breath in. So deep breath into the ball and then squeeze that on top of the ball and then relax. And I can keep repeating this process until the tissue over the top and the joint underneath starts to release and give. And then what I want to do from here is if I move it a little bit further off the spine onto the rib cage, I'll now be affecting the rib joint underneath. Take a deep breath into the ball. Give that tissue a squeeze over the top for about 5 to 10 seconds and then relax. Again, keep repeating that process until you feel like it's given and it's released enough. What you'll find is you'll be right in the middle, just off to the side, and moving out a little bit wider just before we get to that shoulder blade, spending some time there, working our way all the way up as high as we can find things that need work. What I always like to say with this exercise, or an exercise like this, is just double check the other side to make sure that even though you may not have rhomboid related pain here, the stiffness and the restriction here may be causing some dysfunction on the other side. That's step 2. Now, point number 3, often with these sorts of things, there is a strength or an endurance element. A really great way to start to reclaim this is with some simple rowing exercises. I've got a power band. It's attached to something that's not going to move. You can use cables, you can use hand weights, you can use TheraBands. Just make sure that the resistance is enough that you feel you can control this really well. Because what I want to get you to do is, being up nice and tall in a good posture, I'm going to get you to pull the band towards you as far as you feel comfortable. Now, what I want to make sure that you do here is we want to make sure that you stop once your elbows come level with your trunk. The reason for that is when you get there, it's much easier to then squeeze your shoulder blades together when your elbows are at your side. Now, if you are relatively advanced with this exercise, and you can pull your hands towards your chest so that your elbows go past your trunk, and still squeeze your shoulder blades together and get a really strong workout through those rhomboids, among other muscles, then all power to you. But a lot of people might find that when their elbows track past their trunk, it will ask their shoulders to dump forwards into a bad shape. And that'll basically change the orientation of the whole exercise, and it'll be a little bit harder to get those sort of rhomboid muscles to do the work. Now, again, when you're doing this exercise, make sure that you're thinking of pulling those shoulder blades in towards your spine to really engage those muscles along the way. So we can do this same exercise to get a lot of the traps to work, but those rhomboids are also going to have a little bit of a workout in this position as well. So if you're taking the time to free up those rhomboids and mobilize all that stiff tissue, we want to make sure that you do enough of these that you start to fatigue those same muscles so they come back stronger. So again, if you want some more endurance, we need high repetitions. So we might be talking 15 to 20 reps, maybe a couple of sets of that. If you want to just build some more strength, you might want to have a little bit more resistance on the band. So maybe go back a little bit. And we're looking more for that sort of 8 to 12 range of reps with a couple of sets as well. But that's step number 3, adding some strength. Now, the 4th step in this process to eliminating rhomboid pain and discomfort is probably the most important. And it's valuing and recognizing how good your postural habits might be. So what I find clinically, the number one cause of pain and discomfort in the rhomboid area is literally the positions you put that tissue into. So if you take a step back and analyze your day-to-day life, what we're looking for basically is to pick on the shapes and the postures and the positions that you get into the most throughout the day consistently. So for most people, that's probably going to be a computer. If it's your mouse hand that gets dragged away from you and everything basically gets dragged down from that position. So the weight of gravity, the arm gets pulled away. You just get constant tension going through that neck and upper back. The rhomboids can be a part of that process going forward. So if you are in a position where your shoulders are rounding a lot, if you're playing on the computer, if you're playing an instrument, if you sit and drive, you sit and relax into the couch in this position, if you're consistently dropping and rolling forwards, then you're going to be consistently putting those tissues in your upper back under more stress and tension than they're designed to handle. If you did that one time, your body couldn't care less. It can adapt and it can tolerate anything in a short amount of time. But if this is a consistent thing throughout your day, where it's your work day, it's what you do leisurely, if there's a lot of driving involved, whatever it is, if you can't take a step back and recognize A, what you're spending the most of your time doing, and B, what shape you're in while doing that, then you're potentially going to miss the underlying cause of this whole conversation. So if you're not then trying to sit down in an up tall position with your shoulders comfortably back and finding a way to move your environment to support that shape, then this stuff isn't going to go away and stay away for good. It's not given a chance to. I hope that was genuinely helpful. Let me know in the comments down below how you found those steps. I find that if you can follow each one of those steps and master each one of those steps, there's very little reason for the rhomboids to stay dysfunctional. You can definitely free them up and make them feel better. You can certainly get them stronger. But if you're not having that postural conversation, then potentially it's all for nothing eventually. So let me know how that goes for you. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If that was a really important piece of information that you didn't know, please consider leaving a super thanks donation just to help me out going forwards. But with that being said, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next one.